front. Talks to Caulfield. Fires. Scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Habs After Dark, another preseason rookie camp edition of Habs After Dark. Bienvenue tout le monde à une autre émission de Bleu, Blanc, Rouge, Nuit. Une émission, version de l'émission de la pré-saison, le camp des recrues, le prospect showdown, le face-à-face des... On dit ça en français, le face-à-face des prospects, des recrues. Let me get my comment window open here. There we go. Welcome to the show, guys. If you're new here, please feel free to join us. Get in the comment section. Demandez vos questions. Faites vos commentaires dans la section des commentaires. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. The subscribe button is down below. Hit the notification bell. And if you do like the content and you do enjoy what you see and what you hear, give us a thumbs up. That always helps as well. So tonight, or this afternoon, we have the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs playing in their second game of the Prospect Showdown, the Canadiens Prospect Showdown. The Canadiens, of course, losing last night to the Winnipeg Jets 4-3. And tonight, or this afternoon, they lose 4-1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs rookies, prospects. Again, a bit of a disappointing result for the Montreal Canadiens, but again, not a disappointing game overall. This is, after all, a preseason rookie camp game. So the result is not necessarily the most important. I think the Canadiens probably played well enough to win this game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to finish their opportunities in the same way that the Maple Leafs prospects were. The shots at the end of the day were 37-30. However, the Canadiens were only able to score one goal, and that was the Philippe Michard goal at 15:28 of the second period. Michard intercepting a pass in the neutral zone and going wide around the Toronto Maple Leafs goalie, the Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman, and then beating Peksa, the goalie in nets for Toronto, with a nice shot low, short side. At that point, the game was 3-1. Looked like the Canadiens had a little bit of life after that goal. Honestly, the Canadiens were pretty dominant. They were taking the game to the Maple Leafs pretty significantly for the last 4 or 5 minutes or so of the second period, and then throughout the third period, they certainly carried the play and were had some prolonged pressure in the Toronto Maple Leaf end. For whatever reason, the referees decided to put their whistles away a little bit in the third period, so that kind of didn't help the Canadiens, but they did eventually get one power play sort of in the last 5 minutes of the game and didn't look very good on the power play. They weren't able to do very much with it, and they struggled, and then Toronto scored the empty net goal to put it away and to make the game 4-1. Not as good a game, I don't think, tonight or this afternoon as yesterday's game. Ivan Demidov was not in the lineup for the Montreal Canadiens, and obviously that made a difference. That dominant line last night of Demidov, Kapanen, and Xhekaj wasn't there. And when you're able to put a line like that out every third shift, it really it's going to help your team, and it's going to make your team look better. Not just that line, but it's going to make the others look better because it's going to put the pressure on the other team and force them to do to do more and get tired and it's certainly Demidov is obviously a difference maker when he's on the ice, especially at that level. That said, that's not the reason why the Canadiens lost. Toronto obviously sat out a couple of their top prospects as well, including Easton Cowan, who wasn't there. So there's no excuses as far as that's concerned. Again, it just came down to a situation, I think, where the Canadiens were probably a little less mature than their opponent, and they weren't able to take advantage of their opportunities and to sort of treat their opportunities as being pretty important. Like, scoring opportunities at this level are very precious. And, when you get one, you need to really make sure that you bury it. And, I think that's kind of something that they struggled with both this afternoon and last night. And that's kind of, where it came down to. I think the Toronto goalie played quite well, again, facing 37 shots and saving 36 of them. That's pretty impressive. I don't think there were as many dangerous scoring chances tonight as there were yesterday. But again, between the two games, I think the Canadiens had like somewhere close to 80 shots. I think they were in the low 40s last night, 41-ish. And then tonight with 37. So, 2 games in a row where you have significant shots on goal. But unfortunately, you're not able to, to put the puck in the net enough to win it. And then that's, again, a sign of immaturity a little bit. Again, comparable to, what we see from the Canadiens last year early in the season when they were a little bit more immature, not taking advantage of their opportunities and then giving up opportunities to the other team. And allowing them to score when it counted. So the Maple Leafs goals came from, again, I don't know all the first names of all these guys, and I should, but Kerwan, Hames, and Tverberg, and I don't know who scored the empty net goal. I unfortunately ended up having to watch the last bit of the game on the live feed that had no commentary or any graphics, so I didn't really catch who scored the empty net goal for Toronto. I don't think it really matters all that much, but needless to say, the first goal by Kerwin was a bit of a harmless shot from from just above, from the high slot, above the hash marks. He skated across the middle off the faceoff and took a pretty harmless looking wrist shot towards the goal that Jacob Fowler just looked like he wasn't really ready for, and it managed to beat him. The goal was scored from Hansey and Hames. Harry Hansey, I think it is. Not sure what Hames' first name is. The second goal, I don't recall. I think that was the two-man power play goal where Hames got a one-timer from the circle and buried it. Tverberg scored the empty net goal as well. Okay, so that was his second goal of the game. Thank you, Jimmy, 2 times. Much appreciated. So the second goal was Hames on a one-timer on a 5-on-3 power play. And again, it was a cross-ice pass across the Royal Road, and Fowler just wasn't able to get across and set up in time, and the shot beat him on the short side. Then you had the goal from Meilleure that we spoke about earlier at 15:28 of the second period. And, him intercepting a pass in the neutral zone and then going in around the Toronto defenseman and then beating the Toronto goalie short side. The Tverberg goal in the third period was from Quillen, and I thought it was. I'm not sure who the other guy who got that assist was. But Tverberg, just again, a puck from, coming around from behind the net, a bit of a scramble in front of the net, and Tverberg is able to, to convert against Arseny Radkov, who Arseny Radkov came in and replaced Jacob Fowler. Jimmy 2 times. Jimmy 2 times. Who impressed you in this game for both sides? I think for the Toronto Maple Leafs side, I mean, their goaltender Peksa, I thought was impressive. You thought, I thought he was pretty good. Hames obviously is an impressive guy. I understand he blocked a shot with his face yesterday, and was back in the game today, and he looked pretty good. Obviously scoring a goal and an assist. I thought the Leafs looked okay. I don't think there was anybody that really stood out. I don't think there were any real flashy guys out there. They clearly wanted to go in and be physical, and they had a few guys who were able to do that. But if I had to pick somebody out, I guess for Toronto it would be Hames and Peksa. For Montreal, I thought Meilleure played well, obviously scoring the only goal. But we'll get more into the Canadiens' best players when we get to the A team here shortly. The A team is our regular feature here on Habs After Dark, where we talk about the, it's basically our version of the 3 stars. So we'll get to that here in a second, if you guys can wait a little bit. So that's the final score. Again, I think the takeaway from both games is that the Canadiens probably played well enough to win both of the games. I think they showed a little bit of immaturity. I think their prospect group is quite young, as compared, relatively speaking to, certainly the Jets group and the Toronto group as well. I think there's more talent there in the Canadiens prospect group, but maybe not as much experience and certainly not as much age. So that was that was probably pretty relevant or pretty apparent from watching this game and last night's game. You thought Sims was dominant along the boards. Yeah, I mean, I think Landon Sim brought some energy for the Maple Leafs, which I think obviously was helpful for them. I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that kid. I guess I have a bit of a bias against him, I guess. But yeah, I suppose he did bring some energy and he did set the tone a little bit. Apparently that fight that he had with Andrew McNeil went back to a fight that the two of them had against each other a number of years ago, where McNeil had the better of him, and I guess he was looking for some revenge in that. I just think he's a bit of a dirty player, but it is what it is, and I just that wasn't the kind of thing that I was looking for from this game. That style of play. I mean, I don't mind you being physical and whatever, but sort of that, I don't know. I guess he had a good game. I'm not gonna pretend that he didn't have a good game. I think I have a bit of a bias against the player. Not just from this game, but from the past. And I'm not a huge fan of the kid and some of the things that he's done in the past. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I guess you could say that he brought some energy. And he did a good job of sort of winning, his board battles and, playing above his size for sure. And so he was good in that sense. So, but again, let's get to the Canadiens players, and that will sort of, take the form of the A team, as we call it here. The A team, of course, being our version of the 3 stars, named after the great and famous 1980s television show called... So for the A team for the Canadiens today, I have Owen Beck. I thought Owen Beck had a really good game. Certainly, especially the first half of the game, I thought he looked really dangerous in the first period. He got knocked around a little bit later in the game in the third period, in particular. But again, Beck is showing his maturity. Despite still being quite young, he does have relatively more experience than most of the guys that were on his team today. Plays a really solid two-way game. I like his game, and I thought he looked good today. He was skating well, moving his feet, and had an impressive performance for me. I thought Philip Major did a lot for himself today, right? There's a kid who's been kind of up and down as a prospect over the years. He's gone from being a guy who was pretty highly touted to then kind of struggling to be relevant, and then sort of getting back on the radar. Yes, last year at the beginning of the year, and then suffering with a couple of injuries that kind of sidetracked his season last year. So I thought for him this is going to be a big year, and certainly today I think he definitely demonstrated that he still is a force to be reckoned with, as far as prospects in the Montreal Canadiens system are concerned. He's still a relevant guy who may continue, may end up doing something still, whether it's as a Montreal Canadien or in the NHL somewhere else. If the Canadiens can use him as a trade asset or something like that. I thought Luke Tuck had a good game. Again, using his size, a couple of nice hits. Making his presence known in front of the net. Was involved in a few pushing matches in front of the net and whatever. But but again, he had the C on his jersey today, and I thought he did a good job of getting in front of the net and causing some havoc there. Didn't really get very many offensive opportunities out of it, but I thought he had a pretty good game as well. I felt his skating. There was one play where he was on the forecheck, and he just turned on the jets, and his skating was pretty impressive. Good speed, good acceleration. And that's not something I typically think of when I think of Luke Tuck, and that was kind of was nice to see from him. And again, there's another guy who I don't think he's in any rush, but a guy who could still play a role in the organization as time moves forward. Certainly, I think he'll be a big guy for the Rocket in Laval this year. And if he can continue to improve, then he could maybe eventually make his way up to the big team. It's obviously going to be a lot of competition to make the big team. Given what's going on with the Canadiens, but I think that Luke Tuck is still in that conversation. And then finally, I've got Jacob Fowler. I think you could probably say that Arsenij Radkov had a pretty good game too. But again, I just thought that Jacob Fowler did a really good job, setting the tone for the Canadiens early in the game. Right, the Leafs certainly came out and were certainly in the first period. The the Maple Leafs were they were bringing it to the Canadiens. They wanted to sort of set the tone, and Jacob Fowler wasn't having any of it. Jacob Fowler was like, let's settle this down. Let's settle this this stuff down. And I thought he did a really good job. Again, he's just such a technically sound goalie. And again, I'm not comparing him to Carey Price because Carey Price is a pretty hard act to follow. Carey Price set a really high standard, and to get to that standard is a high threshold. But Fowler reminds me a lot of Carey Price just in his technicality of his game, right? Just not effortless looking, but certainly a guy who is in the right place at the right time and doesn't have to sort of rely on a lot of flopping around and whatever. He just, seems to be in the right spot and makes the saves look, easier than they probably are. So I thought between both of those two games, the two half games that Fowler played, I think the math worked out. He saved 28 out of 30 shots. Some of them, pretty tough shots. And I just thought he was pretty solid. I thought he looked really, really good. And, again, Arsenij Radkov, I think, had a pretty decent performance as well. But I guess I'll give it to Jacob Fowler for his performance today. I guess, Jimmy, I agree with you on this one as well. Jimmy says Gurianov, I think, is the guy you're talking about here. I did actually have Gurianov as a guy who I was about to put into my A team. I just didn't have him there. I certainly could have been there over Luke Tuck, I guess, but I thought he had a pretty good game too, especially for a guy who, I think he's an invite. I don't think he's a drafted player. So, I thought he had a good game as well. So the answer to your other question, Jimmy, is that yes, Luke Tuck is related to Alex Tuck. They are brothers. So Luke Tuck is Alex Tuck's younger brother. Alex Tuck, of course, of the Buffalo Sabres. Luke Tuck, I thought had a good game, and it was interesting. So that's the A team for tonight. As far as the game itself goes, I guess we can wrap up the rookie showcase now. I think the players have the day off tomorrow. There's one more day of practice as far as the rookie camp is concerned, and that will be on Monday. I believe there will be some player media availability, so we'll be able to hear from some of the players then. And then I guess we'll find out which of these rookies will make the move onto the big camp, which will be starting on Wednesday, I believe. The golf tournament, I think, is on Tuesday. The golf tournament is tomorrow. So anyways, the Canadiens usually kick off their training camp with the golf tournament And so that I believe happens on Tuesday. What's up, Hunter? Good to see you. Looking forward to Habs After Dark this season. I am as well, Hunter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am also looking forward to it. Do that. Yeah, so we're looking at the schedule for, let's just get this up here so I can not speculate. And Canadiens training camp schedule. So yeah, so the Canadiens typically kick off their training camp with the golf tournament. I don't have it here. In any event, yeah, so we'll find out in the next few days whether any of these players will be invited to the big camp, the NHL camp. I suspect you'll see Demidov there, obviously. You'll probably see David Reinbacher. I think will get a chance to be there. Kapanen will be there, I would expect. Owen Beck will be there. I think that Florian Jacki may have earned himself an opportunity to get a shot at the big camp. Engstrom, I think, will be there. I think that you'll obviously see Jacob Fowler there. Even though I can't imagine that he'll play in the NHL very much this year, but I do think he will get the. I said, did I not say Kapanen? I meant I did. If I didn't say Kapanen, I meant so. So yeah, you've got probably about 8 to 10 guys from this rookie camp. I think Tyler Thorpe might get a chance to go to the big camp. So yeah, those would be the guys. I think we'll see an announcement about that in the next few days, and then the big camp will start. I believe on Wednesday, I think, is when the camp starts with like medicals and stuff like that. And then, of course, you've got a game on the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. Why can't I get this up here? Schedule. Yeah, so the 22nd is the first preseason game against Pittsburgh. Then they play the next night against Philadelphia, and then they play on the 25th against the Leafs, back-to-back with the Leafs on the 25th and the 27th, and then a final preseason game on the 30th against the Ottawa Senators. Oh, no, and then they play again on the 4th of October against the Ottawa Senators. So that's what we're talking about for the next little while. Just as a reminder, guys, I'm doing a show tomorrow with Chris Peters of Flow Hockey. He'll be our guest tomorrow on the Habs Therapy Day show. We're going to be talking about prospects and the new NCAA eligibility rules. I would highly encourage you to check it out. Chris is a great guy and a really knowledgeable guy, especially when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so I'm looking forward to talking to him about that. And that should be an interesting show. So we're going to be on tomorrow at noon Eastern time, 1 o'clock Atlantic time, just myself and Chris Peters. And so I am looking forward to that as well. Jimmy has a question, and this is the question that everybody's asking, and I don't think people like my answer to it. My answer is no. I don't think the Canadiens should trade for Sidney Crosby, and I'll put a condition on that. I mean, unless they can get him for a relatively low price, unless the cost is relatively low, I really don't see great value in having Sidney Crosby on this team. When you think about what the long-term plan for the team is, right? Yes, I get it. Sidney Crosby on the team for a couple years would be beneficial, in particular, his ability to sort of teach the younger players and sort of have his habits or have the players be able to watch how Sidney Crosby comports himself and carries himself and how he, his attitude to the game and how he, prepares himself and so on. All of those things I think would be of great value for the younger players on this team. But beyond that, I don't see any great value in having him on the team. You have to keep in mind that the goal of this team is to become a perennial contender. The goal of this team is not to win the Stanley Cup. And so, this idea that, if you bring Crosby in, you automatically become a Stanley Cup contender. Well, one, I don't agree with that. I don't think even with Sidney Crosby as their second line center that, the Canadiens would be serious contenders to actually win the Cup this year. But two, that's not what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to win with this group, and get to the point where they become perennial contenders. So if they have to give up a significant amount of their future in order to bring in Crosby, then I'm not interested, right? Like, I'm not interested in, giving up young players, prospects, or significant draft capital to bring in a 38-year-old who will be 39 next year to play for a year or two, even though there are benefits that, that we just talked about. So I don't, to me, I don't believe that, signing or trading for, well, it's not going to be a sign, it's going to be a trade for Crosby is in the plan for the Canadiens. It's not part of, it doesn't fit with their long-term plan. And I also don't think in the long run, it helps them achieve that goal, right? It doesn't help them achieve, especially if they have to give up any, if they've got, people are talking about, they got to, trade Demidov or Hudson. I mean, that's a total non-starter. But even if it means like giving up guys like, Reinbacher or Michael Hage or guys like that, these are, they're building something and, bringing, parachuting somebody in to jump right into the lineup like that, I don't think is the best thing for a rebuild. Like we often hear them talking about, this group, right, and how close they are and how tight they are and how, they're all working hard towards the same goal and, how well they get along and they hang out with each other off the ice. And they're, this is something that they're building. And then to parachute somebody in and then maybe take out a couple of the guys who have been a part of that, and have them, be replaced, even if it is by Sidney Crosby, who obviously will come in and be a positive influence in every possible way. I don't think it's ideal for this team to do that. But again, like I said, if they can get him relatively cheap, like the scenario being like Sidney Crosby goes to the management in Pittsburgh and says, "Listen, I'm ready to go somewhere else, and it's Montreal. I want to go to Montreal. That's my childhood team. I want to finish my career there. I like what they're doing over there. I want to go there." And it's the only place I want to go. And then they're kind of like, they have no, they kind of have no choice but to give, not to give him away, but they can't demand as much in that situation as they would be if he said, well, I'll go anywhere. And, you can sort of, create like a bit of a bidding war for him. So if Montreal were able to get him for, for me, let me put it this way. For me, a trade for Crosby, I would say that anybody on the top 6 forwards and the top 4 defense would be off limits. I would say that any of the top 5 to 6 prospects in the organization would be off limits. And I guess I would be willing to give up some draft picks, even some first round draft picks, but not more than one. So that's kind of my take on the Crosby situation. Cash fan, what's Cash fan got to say here? I'm with you. We don't need Sid unless it's way less than what they're talking about. Yes. I mean, again, for me, it's a non-starter, like these people on TSN that just really, have no clue about what's going on in Montreal, who, are talking about, Demidov or Hudson being involved. And, like, come on, like, that's just you guys trying to be relevant and trying to get people to watch your show and see if, clip it and put it on YouTube and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. That's not real life. And that's, not only is it not real life, it's just not going to happen. I mean, if you pay attention to the hints and the cues that, Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes give you, then, you'll understand what this team is trying to do, and that, a trade like that isn't really part of their plan. Like, if you look back, every trade that they've made, or every move that they've made so far, has brought in a player who can, quote unquote, to use Kent Hughes' quote, can grow with the team, right? They're not, I guess maybe the exception to that rule might be Patrick Laine, but again, he was young too, right? 25 years old when they brought him in, and they essentially got him for nothing. So again, I don't think you're going to see them, make a big deal, a big trade, a big move to bring in Sidney Crosby. I don't see it. But again, like I said, if you can get him for, a lower tier, like a second tier prospect, or even like a Joshua Roy, maybe an Owen Beck. I'm not really that keen on getting rid of an Owen Beck, to be quite honest with you. Or a Luke Tuck, or I don't know, a Jaden Struble. Throw 2 or 3 of those guys together, then maybe. But otherwise, I'm not really down for that. So, yeah. But that's a great question. I mean, I get a little bit frustrated by the conversation, because this is the second or third time go around for the Sidney Crosby conversation, and realistically, all it really is at this point is a talking point for the people in the media that are trying to find things to talk about in the off season, right? There's nothing really to talk about, and so they need to fill their pages with something, and this is kind of giving them that fodder to do that. But I don't think it's a real serious conversation at this point. Again, everyone jumped all over the Pierre LeBrun article where Crosby didn't shut down the idea of being traded, and then his agent Pat Brisson had some comments, and they're not. People make a lot more out of that stuff than is really there. Do I think that Crosby is more willing to be traded now than he perhaps ever has been? Yes, 100%. I mean, I think prior to recently, I don't think we ever heard him speak in any way about possibly leaving Pittsburgh, and now he's not denying it, and he's not calling for it or anything, but again, his loyalties are going to lie to Pittsburgh, and at the end of the day, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for him, from his perspective, to stay there, and I don't think he wants to go somewhere and leave Pittsburgh in the lurch. I think he probably wants to, if this is going to be Evgeny Malkin's last year in the NHL, I think he probably wants to be around for that. So anyways, there's all kinds of different things at play there. But at the end, my final take on this is that I don't really think that Crosby is the answer for Montreal, if the cost is going to be significant. So that's my take on Sidney Crosby. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for now, guys. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Ça va tout pour aujourd'hui. On n'a pas eu des questions en français. Mais si vous avez des questions en français, vous pouvez les demander. If you're watching in a replay, si vous regardez cette émission après l'émission en direct, vous pouvez demander vos questions dans la section de commentaires. Feel free to ask your questions in the commentary section, guys. I'm happy to answer them. I do usually do a pretty good job of answering them all. And I do appreciate it. The reason I do this is because I like having conversations with you guys about the team, and I like being objective about the team and having real, serious, intelligent conversations instead of sort of the sensationalism that happens on a lot of the social media platforms and things like that, where people just kind of, my team's awesome, your team sucks kind of stuff. So I like doing that. I like having conversations with you guys. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll either answer them directly in the comment section, or maybe even in the next episode. So we're going to end up doing Habs After Dark for just about every single game this season, preseason and regular season. And again, hopefully postseason. We also do a show called Habs Therapy Day, which we try to do at least once a week Even in the off season, we did a bunch of episodes. I certainly invite you to go check out the episode we did with Marco D'Amico a couple weeks ago, which was really, really fun and informative. And like I said, tomorrow we will be doing a show with Chris Peters from Flow Hockey. Demain, on va faire une émission avec Chris Peters de Flow Hockey. On va parler au sujet des jeunes joueurs des Canadiens et aussi les règlements de la NCAA envers l'éligibilité des joueurs et les joueurs des équipes juniors. So we're going to be talking about the NCAA eligibility rules, Canadiens prospects, tomorrow with Chris Peters. And if you've ever listened to any of Chris Peters' stuff, you know he's one of the best, especially when it comes to that stuff. He's on, all kinds of different podcasts. He really knows his stuff. And he's a pretty even-keeled guy who keeps things pretty objective. And usually always supports his opinion. He's about the facts. He's not about the rumors and the sensationalism. So, in that sense, I think he's perfect for our show. So, merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much, everybody. Like I said earlier, if you're not yet subscribed, please do so. There's a button down below here. All you got to do is hit on it. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We're about 40 short. Once we get to 500, there's all kinds of fun things that YouTube lets us do. So, your help in that would be great if you do want to be part of our community. We are trying to create a community where we can have intelligent, objective conversations about hockey and about the Montreal Canadiens. So if that's interesting to you, then join up. Hit that button down below. Even if you're not watching live, all of our shows we do live, but then of course you can check them out in a replay afterwards. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much, everybody. That's it. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. If you like the show, you like what you're watching, give us a thumbs up. That always helps as well. Helps us with the algorithm. It tells YouTube that you guys actually like the show and that maybe they should tell the rest of the world about it, and we'll get some more people watching. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I hope that you have a great week coming up, and we will see you we'll see you tomorrow, Monday, for the Habs Therapy Day with Chris Peters, and then we'll see you again for Habs After Dark, probably for that first game against Pittsburgh on the 22nd. So have a great day. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for your comments, Hunter, Jimmy 2 times, Cash Fan, and for everybody else that watched, thanks so much. If you're watching in a replay, thank you as well. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir. Bonne journée. Bonne fin de semaine. Have a great one, and peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.